Confirmations. A lot of times when we're unhealthy, we look at our lives and we see confirmations all over the place just about how crappy we are and stuff like that. But then when you start going through recovery, you start to realize that all these confirmations weren't real confirmations at all. You were just interpreting them that way. You were interpreting them through that lens. So if I think I'm a terrible person, I really believe that about myself, and a child walks up to me in the park and says, "You're ugly, mister." I go, well, there you go. Of course I'm ugly and I'm terrible and this child walking up to me out of the blue and saying that is just confirmation of it. But is it confirmation of that? No, it's confirmation that child is a little punk, but it ain't a confirmation of anything involving you. Do you know why I get so angry every time I call customer service for anything? When I'm getting on the phone to call, I ain't angry because of anything they've said to me, because they haven't had time to say anything to me yet. The reason I'm angry when I start a call with customer service is because my perspective or attitude going into the process is that I already know that they're going to be unhelpful idiots. So I'm making the phone call with that as my working premise before the phone rep and I have ever even traded a single word. Does this affect my tone of voice and approach? It sure does. Does this put the phone rep on the defense immediately? It sure does. Does it usually result in a combative phone call with the phone rep being an unhelpful idiot? It sure does. So is my perspective and attitude creating a self-fulfilling prophecy before I've ever dialed them up on my phone? I would say 99.999% of the time, probably yes. But when the phone rep is an unhelpful idiot, this enrages me even more. Why? Because what made me loathe making that phone call in the first place has now actually played out. But what happens when I check myself before making the call and I say to myself, Brian, you have never talked to this person before in your life. This is a blank slate. So you can't go at them as if you already know them. You gotta allow for them to prove for themselves if they are unhelpful idiots or not. You know, on the merits of this phone call, stand alone. Your previous experiences has no defining power over this particular experience whatsoever. The two aren't related. Well, usually what happens is that the phone rep ends up being extremely pleasant and overwhelmingly helpful. It takes a lot of work to question our perspectives, to keep them in check, and do some experiments to see if we aren't interpreting things completely inaccurately and therefore not getting the actual results we believe we're getting at all. So the confirmations in your life have almost certainly only been confirmations because of an incorrect interpretation and expectation going in to each experience. So it's useful to revisit those confirmations. Imagine how you might have interpreted them differently and more positively if instead of believing you're devoid of worth, of inherent worth, that is, instead of believing you're a piece of dung, you instead had approached those experiences with the certainty that you are not a piece of dung, that your worth is an inherent part of being you, and that anything or anybody who suggests otherwise is reflecting a truth about themselves but not about you. This exercise, with time, can help you convince yourself once and for all that your worth is a real thing and that the opposite has never been confirmed for real. Orange Slices are brief highlights from the Last Symptom podcast. Subscribe to full audio episodes of the show on any major podcast platforms such as Spotify, Pandora, iTunes, Amazon Music, and more. While I've got you chewing on that, like this video, pretty please. Might as well press subscribe while you're at it. I bet you a nickel you know somebody who's overdue for hearing some of these things, so go on, forward this video to them.